Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the intelligent people around you, friends, doctors, professors, had begun to repeat absurdities as if they were sacred truths. Lies become laws, manipulations become virtues, and the moment someone dares to question, they're shamed, mocked, or canceled. But what if I told you this exact scenario was not only predicted, it was understood long before smartphones, algorithms, or artificial intelligence ever existed? It all began in a prison cell during one of the darkest chapters of human history. There, a man named Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a theologian and resistor of the Nazi regime, wrote something that today feels less like philosophy and more like prophecy. But Bonhoeffer didn't write about war or weapons. He wrote about something far more dangerous, something that infiltrates not just politics or religion, but our very capacity to think. He wrote about what he called the power of stupidity, and what he said might be the most important warning of our time. Bonhoeffer made one critical observation: stupidity is not the absence of intelligence. It's not about IQ or education or credentials. It's something far more insidious: the abdication of critical thought. It happens when a person stops thinking independently and hands their mind over to the crowd. According to Bonhoeffer, this kind of stupidity is not a personal failure. It's a social phenomenon, a collective fog that settles in, especially in times of fear, chaos, and uncertainty. Have you ever believed something just because everyone around you did? Not because you examined it, but because it felt safe. That's where it begins, and the danger is that it doesn't just affect the uninformed. In fact, Bonhoeffer noticed something chilling in 1943. The most educated, respected, and morally upright members of society were often the first to justify the unjustifiable, not out of evil, but out of fear, out of comfort, out of convenience. It wasn't that they didn't know the truth. It's that truth had become inconvenient, he wrote. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. Arguments don't work. Facts are ignored. The stupid person resists correction, not because they're incapable, but because they're certain they're right. Let that settle for a moment. This kind of certainty, blind, emotional, group-fed, is the death of wisdom. And now, decades later, science is confirming what Bonhoeffer saw in that prison cell: the science of mass conformity and Solomon Asch's conformity experiment. 75% of participants denied obvious visual evidence just to agree with the group. At Yale, Stanley Milgram found that 65% of people were willing to deliver what they believed were fatal electric shocks just because an authority figure told them to. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, discovered that false news travels 6 times faster than truth. Why? Because lies trigger emotional certainty, a kind of addictive mental candy that gives people a false sense of control. When you're afraid, overwhelmed, or uncertain, you don't seek truth, you seek comfort, and the crowd offers comfort. But that comfort has a cost. You stop thinking for yourself, and when that happens at scale, societies become programmable, not by logic, but by slogans, hashtags, memes. Why this still matters today: look around. Our world is not short on intelligence. We have access to more knowledge than any generation before us, but wisdom, discernment, courage to question the narrative, those are becoming rare, because we're not taught to think, we're taught to perform, to react, to stay in line, to avoid conflict at all costs. And, worst of all, to confuse popularity with truth. What gets shared isn't what's true, it's what's loud, what's emotionally charged, what agrees with what we already believe. The result? Echo chambers, mental bubbles, a society where disagreement feels like violence and questioning makes you dangerous. Bonhoeffer called this a spiritual illness, because it doesn't just distort logic, it erodes the soul. The antidote: inner resistance. So, What can we do? Bonhoeffer believed that the cure to this collective blindness was not in force, but in inner clarity. He called it costly grace, the radical act of thinking, even when it hurts, even when it costs you friends, even when it isolates you, even when the world tells you, stay quiet, stay safe. But the truth is, silence is no longer safe, and thinking has become an act of rebellion. So if you want to resist, here's where to start. Read what challenges you, not to agree, but to test the foundations of what you believe. Pause before reacting. Ask, what emotion is being triggered, and who benefits from this reaction? Practice intellectual humility. Admit what you don't know. Stay curious. Stay teachable. Create space for stillness. Wisdom is subtle. It doesn't compete with noise. It whispers. Stop outsourcing your mind. No influencer, no algorithm, no trend will ever care about your soul. Only you can do that. A final question: how many of your beliefs are really yours? How many were installed by repetition? You may not have chosen the system, but today, right now, you can choose to wake up from it. And that may be the most powerful act of freedom in a world that fears it. Bonhoeffer's last words just days before the end of World War II. Bonhoeffer was executed. His last words: "This is the end, but for me, the beginning of life." Because even when his body was imprisoned, his mind was free, and so is yours, if you choose to protect it. This message made you pause. Share it with someone you care about, someone who may still be thinking they're awake, but might just be dreaming someone else's dream. Think deeply, question gently, resist the noise, return to yourself,